Listen carefully, ladies and gentlemen, because what you are about to hear is not just tragic, but downright indecent. Imagine this. Hip-hop legend Papoose, who personified loyalty, falls to his knees and begs medical professionals to save Remy Ma, the love of his life. Desperate cries echoing off icy, sterile intensive care unit walls, tears on the floor, and just when you think things might get any worse, the true bomb goes off. Concealed cameras. Yes, doctors, the same people she trusted to fight for her life, are seen on hidden cameras concealing a terrible secret behind sealed doors. Was it incapacity, carelessness, or something darker? The miracle workers they promised were nowhere to be found. Where was humanity? Where was the urgency? You won't ever hear this question on the 6-month news. Was Remy Ma's battle for survival internally sabotaged? Fasten your seatbelts because what you're about to discover will challenge all of your preconceived notions about hospitals, loyalty, and the unpleasant reality that lies behind shiny white walls. Was not an accident, and the evidence is on video. A peaceful supper, a few giggles, and possibly some Instagram stories were all part of the plan for the evening. However, for Remy Ma and Papoose, that night turned into an unavoidable nightmare. She was smiling one minute, and then she was having trouble breathing and passed out at the dinner table. Screams and a 911 call shattered the atmosphere, and in a matter of minutes, the Queen of New York rap was struggling to survive in a hospital she had never trusted. No one was prepared for what came next, though. When Papoose arrived, security attempted to bar him at the door, but he came like a man possessed. A serious error. Desperate to get to her, he stormed the intensive care unit and blasted through them. Remy Ma was lying there, unconscious, connected to equipment, and doctors were huddled around her, shuffling, avoiding eye contact, and murmuring anxiously. Papoose knew right away that something was up. Asking for updates, he demanded answers. What he received were prepared lies and icy shrugs. He said, "We're doing everything we can. It's complicated. Stay calm, as his true love was vanishing. And then it took place. Papoose reportedly collapsed to his knees in the corridor, screaming and crying as he begged the medical staff to save her. Not gently, not courteously, begging in a true, broken and wounded way. The security personnel averted their gaze. Veteran nurses dabbed at their tears. The intensive care unit went cold. However, a darker thing was going on behind closed doors when Papoose broke down. Leaked surveillance tape, which they believed no one would ever see, revealed doctors engaging in the unimaginable, joking, laughing, and browsing on their phones as Remy Ma's cardiac monitor sounded alarms. Why even bother? "It's over," was the last thing one of them said, and those 5 words went off like a bomb on the internet. It was being treated as a coffee break by those who were trusted to save his wife, while Papoose was pleading for her life. When the video was leaked, social media went crazy. Millions called for answers on your Save Remy Ma, your Hospco cover-up, and to justice for Remy. News organizations rushed to find something to say. Across the country, hospitals entered a crisis situation. In the meantime, Papoose was not giving up behind those sterile walls. Feeling and heartbroken, he entered administrative offices to demand the tape and to find out why no one was fighting more. He had to be pulled from the surveillance room doors by 6 security personnel, according to sources. When it appeared that things couldn't get much worse, they did. Private conversations between administrators and confidential emails were the source of another leak, and they exposed an abhorrent scheme. To reduce responsibility, hospital administrators allegedly decided to restrict drastic life-saving treatments in the event that Remy Ma's condition deteriorated. Give it some thought. Instead of battling for her life, they planned to kill her to save their reputation. Wordlessly broken, Papoose would not leave her side. He sat by her, praying, speaking, and keeping watch outside for hours on end. Every hour, the internet, his universe, grew louder. The struggle for Remy Ma's life, the one Papoose never requested but refused to lose, had only just begun, and the cover-up had grown thicker and the voices deeper inside. Not only did the leaked video become popular, but it also sparked a revolution. The internet was in flames within hours of the ICU recording becoming public, as the very people sworn to rescue lives turned their backs on Papoose, who was on his. Knees begging for mercy, millions of people watched in despair. And as Remy Ma's heartbeat slowed steadily in the background, the physicians were captured on hidden cameras smiling, scrolling, and shrugging. Not only did the globe respond, it exploded. How is it even real? How are they not in jail already? Justice for Remy. Now, Near Hospital cover-up, Mark save Remy, and dar no more lies. The internet was inundated with almost 5 million tweets in a single day. Black squares with inscriptions that read "Pray for Remy" were all over the world. TikTok producers used the video to create open letters to politicians, conspiracy theories, and exposés. And there was mayhem outside the hospital. "Raise came" was chanted like a battle cry by hundreds of people who were assembled at the gate, with signs. While posters soared, candles flickered. Panic, complete collapse, took place inside the hospital as one banner hung across the street, reading, "They let her die to save their reputation." Emergency meetings were conducted by administrators. Staff were told in urgent emails by PR teams to keep quiet and remove any information that was not on file. This email was obtained and it said, "This footage is catastrophic. Minimize further. Exposure at all costs." You know who they thought was the most threatening? The Papoose. Since Papoose was getting ready for war, the hospital was trying to hide. He sat at Remy's bedside, unable to move, his eyes lifeless, and he gripped her hand so firmly that his knuckles became white, according to witnesses. He refused to leave. He refused to eat, and he refused to drink. The secrets of the institution were revealed more quickly the longer he was there. They first denied him access. The ICU doors are guarded by security. All of a sudden, they said, family members had to leave the floor due to infection regulations. Indeed, exactly. It didn't fool Papoose. Remy wasn't being protected by the hospital. They were protecting themselves. The last insult was an attempt to relocate Remy Ma to a secure floor without even informing her family. A floor that's safe, or a location where no more cameras, leaks, or witnesses are present. Papoose was devastated when he learned, according to one witness, it was like witnessing a lion emerge from a cage. He couldn't be stopped. Screaming for administrators, demanding answers, and kicking open doors, Papoose ran through the hallways. Papoose cornered the hospital director against a wall, face to face, and spat out his rage as someone caught on camera. The administrator, pallid as a ghost, stumbled, "It's just precaution, standard protocol." "Where are you taking her? Tell me right now, or I'll tear this place down brick by brick." When is it appropriate to conceal a dying lady from her husband out of caution? Meanwhile, protests broke out outside the hospital. Traffic was stopped, entire city blocks were closed, and windows were shaken by cries. Every second, influencers. Live-streamed, reporters competed for angles, and news helicopters hovered overhead. It then became worse. A complete 47-minute body cam footage that was surreptitiously filmed by a nurse who could no longer stand the lies was the second leak to surface. What did it reveal? 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and no one answered the alarm. Nurses talked about their weekend plans while machines yelled orders for life-saving drugs, which were later discovered to have been falsified. A nurse may be seen personally turning off an alarm in one spooky picture to stop it from attracting attention. Was silence-based execution, not carelessness. When the video went viral, they demanded blood in addition to justice. They murdered her, shut the hospital down, no justice, no peace. Litigation started to pile up in a matter of hours. Lawyers for civil rights filed malpractice lawsuits. Emergency evaluations were demanded by medical ethicists. And behind the scenes, federal agents secretly reviewed files. Papoose in the interim. With Remy's unconscious body only feet away, he sat cross-legged on the chilly hospital floor and watched that footage by himself. After it was over, he struck the wall until his hand bled. A security guard volunteered to take him away. "You'll have to kill me first," was Papoose's reaction, and the world joined him outside the hospital. Giant images of Remy Ma were projected onto surrounding buildings by fans. In their tribute freestyles, rappers specifically mentioned the hospital. On Twitter, anonymous activists posted internal hospital memos. It was a movement, a war, and Papoose, not simply a story that was trending anymore. He was no longer only Remy's spouse. He was now the public face of a revolution. The trail also grew darker as detectives dug further. As the emails, videos, and testimony came flooding in, it became evident that Remy Ma wasn't the first and wouldn't have been the last. There was a pattern to the hospital's past: secret payouts, covered trails, and silent fatalities. Additionally, they mishandled the incorrect family this time, because they had only just begun, and Papoose now had an army behind him. The world was prepared to tear down the gates to obtain justice, not simply demand it. Within 48 hours of the second video disclosure, petitions with over 2 million signatures were flooded. On national television, civil rights lawyers, celebrities, and activists gathered to call it what it was: the greatest medical deception of our time. At the heart of it all is Papoose, who has evolved from a distraught husband to a fighter in need of help to a symbol of resistance. With cameras blaring from all directions, Papoose stood on the hospital steps and said the words that would go down in history. They tried to erase her, they tried to erase the truth, but you can't bury justice, and you damn sure can't bury Remy Ma. In a single day, the clip received 50 million views. As demonstrators crowded downtown blocks shouting, "Justice for Remy! Shut it down! No more silent deaths!" City streets were closed, and inside the hospital, it felt like a kingdom coming to an end. Leading executives left the facility while being escorted by police. Doctors' offices were locked. Administrators destroyed documents in fits of panic. Hard drives, laptops, and thousands of pages of records were seized by federal officials during their raid on the hospital's administration wing. And what did they discover? Not carelessness, but a full-fledged criminal operation. Years of concealed deaths, family backdoor reimbursements, fabricated medical records, and data manipulation to preserve the hospital's reputation, all at the expense of lives. The case of Remy Ma had blown the lid off everything. The board of the hospital resigned in numbers as the evidence and names mounted. During the day, key employees were arrested and placed in handcuffs while cameras were rolling. The Attorney General opened an urgent investigation into the city's health system as a whole, not just the hospital. Papoose, meanwhile, was adamant about staying with Remy. He refused to even leave her intensive care unit room for interviews or media appearances, according to sources. To one reporter, he said, "This isn't about headlines. This is about her." Miracles were taking place within Remy's intensive care unit. After being rushed in from all around the nation, doctors started providing aggressive, real care for the first time in days. As the machines beeped in more consistent and powerful rhythms, Ray's vitals grew stronger. She twitched her hand one day. A day later, she blinked. Then, as the entire world watched on cameras, Remy Ma grasped Papoose's hand. She was retaliating, with the most potent, yet tiniest signal. The noise of the action outside only increased. City Hall billboards displayed a picture of Remy Ma. Her voice saved lives, billboards said, and documentary teams rushed to catch every moment. The rights to tell the story are up for bid by Netflix, Hulu, and HBO. However, Papoose refused to accept the money. Blood was what he desired. In a historic indictment, the prosecutors delivered. Several hospital executives faced charges of criminal conspiracy, tampering with evidence, reckless endangerment, obstruction of justice, and gross negligence. With the start of public trials, courtrooms were packed. Papoose sat in the front row every day, observing with a blank expression as those who almost destroyed his family were brought to justice. As the verdicts came in, they were guilty, guilty, guilty. Time in prison, hefty fines, hospital bankruptcy, shame, and irreversible closure. But it wasn't just that. Congress enacted a new national law, known as Ray's Law, in reaction to the scandal, mandating that all hospitals have independent real-time surveillance, patient advocate rights, and public emergency reporting for critical cases. In addition to exposing a crime, Remy Ma's story permanently altered the system. Meanwhile, Remy Ma was back in the hospital, making her own gradual but inevitable recovery. She spent many hours retraining her body to walk, move, and fight through speech and physical therapy. Papoose was by her side the entire time, cheering her on at every turn, and shedding a tear or two when she took her first breath without assistance. Finally, months later, the day arrived. Strong but shaky, Remy Ma stood on her own 2 feet. She held Papoose's hand as the world watched the moment that had been prayed for. Together, they left the hospital through the front doors and entered the sunlight, avoiding the throng, reporters, and banners. When they stopped at the top of the steps, Remy Ma's voice was clear but trembling as she continued, "They tried to break me. They tried to bury me, but love made me unstoppable." The streetlights trembled with the deafening cheers. Remy Ma and Papoose did more than just survive. They triumphed. What about the sinister secret that nearly killed her? It ignited a revolution. Because occasionally the world is changed by something. the loudest protests, or the largest armies. It can be one woman refusing to die, one guy refusing to kneel, or one love that will not end. And as a result of that love, a false empire collapsed. Not only was Remy Ma's survival a triumph, but it also served as a warning. We are watching, and we will never again remain silent. And it all began when a man refused to give up and went on his knees. That concludes the tale, which began with a single frantic call for assistance and ended with the collapse of an entire system. In addition to fighting for Remy Ma's life, Papoose also battled for all the voices that had been suppressed and all the truths that had been prematurely buried. However, the true question is, how many more hospitals are concealing their shortcomings? What number of other families are grieving in silence as cover-ups go on behind closed doors? The time has come to stay awake and to cease acting. We'd want to hear you speak. Do you think that justice was actually done? Did Remy Ma's survival suffice? Or is a far larger battle just getting started? Leave your unbiased opinions in the comments section.